Yesterday we did our blending, we used the blending stumps. Yesterday we also did hatching, which we used our pencil for. Today we're going to go to cross hatching. Again, this is one direction. Cross hatching is where you're crossing it over. So you're giving two directions to that line. So just like before, you can come in. Again, I use diagonal lines. I just like diagonal lines. If yours are vertical or horizontal, that's perfectly fine. So these are coming in here. And then I'm going to come in from the opposite direction. Again, notice the most artistic of looks will not be, if this is your box, the most artistic of looks will not be this. Boom. This is too planned, where they're all reaching from one side to the other. It looks like a giant grid or a tic-tac-toe board. What we're looking at is we're looking at changing the length of them so that when they overlap, they blend very well together. This is more artistic. This is a little bit more of a higher level that I know you guys are possible of completing really well. This one is a more, I understand the technique, but I'm not ready for this one. I really feel like all of you are ready for this one, to be honest with you. So again, you're varying the length of that line in both directions. Okay? So as we go into here, I'm going to continue on my way. I'm going to try not to turn my paper to make you dizzy like I did yesterday. But I'm going to continue. Again, these are not blended. Even though these are pencil, these are not to be blended. You're not using your blending stump on these at all. They're meant to show the line. Okay? So as we come into here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to lighten it up by putting the lines a little bit further apart, adding some other ones in there. As we come into this one, again, the lines are further and further apart as we're working. This last one, before you get to white, that's the one that throws some people off a little bit. So you just kind of have to, I guess, dive right into it. And that looks like this. For the lightest of value, you're just going to flex some little lines, kind of like that. Really basic, and this is what it's going to end up looking like. So that's your value scale for cross hatching. Okay? Now as we get into stippling, stippling is also known as pointillism, so you can use the point of something. It's really important when you're using the point that you put that point down and that you lift it back up so it's actually a dot. You don't want a lot of tadpoles. This is not stippling, but I see that often. They look like little eyelashes have fallen down on your paper. I don't want to see that, and that's usually what people are doing when they're hurrying, where they're like, that gets a little bit more messy looking. Now, I gave you trusty, handy-dandy Crayola marker so that you can put the point down, make a little bit of a bigger impact so it doesn't take you quite as long on this one. But as we go to working on creating some of our drawings using these values, you're going to get a really great fine point marker to do this. If you have a fine point marker, I know some people might have microns or Sharpie extra fine. Those are all really great options. So again, for stippling, you're basically putting a bunch of dots down, and in the darker spots, you're filling it in with a lot more dots, even letting them overlap. Now what's really important about the method here is that you want to work, and I put my dots in kind of loop-de-loops like that so that they look more random when I'm finished. This is a yes. You don't want to do this. Like keys on a typewriter or a keyboard, you don't want them to look like they've been stacked up or laid out in beautiful lines, because that doesn't give you a really good finished work for right now. Again, could there be a time at the end or another drawing where that's absolutely relevant? Yes, it is. But for this one, it is not. Okay? So what does that look like on here? When we're working on stippling, let me get this a little bit closer in there. There we go. When we're working on stippling, again, we're going to be coming in. Of course, at the end, you might have a little bit of a row. But we're basically going to fill that up nicely. This one is going to be rich and dark and beautiful. Now, I can tell a difference between stippling and it's being all filled in with dots. I can tell a difference between that and maybe she won't notice if I just color it in. I will notice if you color it in. It has to be dots, okay? So that's going to come in here. Again, over here, they're going to be spread out a little bit more, giving a little bit more of that paper white coming from it. Over here, they're going to be a little bit more spread out. And then over here, even more so, where you're just more carefully placing some down just to show some value. I will show you a finished shot of one in just a minute. But I want to get to the last one. And this is an invent your own technique. This one could be, maybe it's the letter of your name. Maybe I'll put all G's for mine. Maybe I'll do squigglies. Maybe I'll do those little eyelashes that I previously said don't do. That could work for this invent your own technique. And this invent your own technique is also known, let me get this a little bit brighter. There we go. It's also known as linear value. Anything that doesn't fit into one of the other categories is linear value, okay? So with that, I'm going to go back to my pencil. I'm going to do this really, if anyone sews or has someone in their family who does any kind of quilting, there's this really cool pattern that they use to fill in. It's called stippling. It's a really great pattern that they use. You could do something like that. You could do curlicues, filling it in. You could do eyelash curls, filling it in. You could do letter G's. Of course, letters will take a little bit longer because you've got to make a little bit more of an effort to make that exact mark to fill it in. You could use check marks to fill it in. You could use @ signs. Of course, it's going to take a while. So all of those things are perfectly valid. I would say if you're an advanced artist, someone who this is coming relatively easy to, try to challenge yourself to pick something that will take you a little bit more time. You know, if you want to do something that's really interesting, let me know. I'd be happy to have you kind of expand on what it is you're doing here, okay? So what is that going to look like? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just do the curlicues. Again, this one's going to be filled up. Notice it's not in rows. I'm kind of going a little bit here, then I go back, and then I come back over here. It's like the old time. Does anyone actually have a corded phone at home? I'm surprised. Usually I have like no one that has them anymore. They have that really cool little corkscrew curl on the actual handset that goes to your phone. That's what it reminds me of. So this would be a nice dark one right here. Again, I can go back over the top to deepen it. Right over here, we're probably looking at something kind of like that. Again, still rich and dark. Here, we're going to lift up and open up some of those O's, some of those loops, and make sure that it's not quite as full, we'll say. It's not quite as closed and small. And then this last one is, again, the challenge. How do I put marks in here that are still reflective of that? Can you draw lightly? Yes. But also I want you to realize that you can just put like little ideas of what it is across there. So again, you want to make sure to open these up so that they show the lightness or the darkness. This one is still a little bit closed, and then this one is the most closed. So those are our 3 for today. And I remind you to clean up, you can use that paper. Now clean up for pointillism. Obviously you can't use an eraser anymore. So one thing, big tip I'm going to offer to you. First of all, don't forget to smile. One tip I'm going to offer for you is if you use a piece of paper as a block, as you're going across the edge, as you're going over here, you don't have to worry about going off the edge of your drawing. That'll keep it really nice and neat. Later on, when we're doing some geometric shapes, I will probably give you a Post-it note each. Post-it note has that little sticky edge that you can actually have it hold it right in place and not shift on you, which will be really nice for you. So that is a way to keep a clean edge when you're working with markers. Okay, so those are the 3 values of today. This sheet should be done. Of course, on the top, sorry, I'll go a little slower. On the top, we want to make sure that we have your name and we have your class period so that you can turn it in and get some amazingly wonderful credit. Have fun.